Air temp enrichment, this is going to add a percentage multiplier against the base VE table. That's going to be at idle, part throttle, wide open throttle. This just renormalizes it based on any kind of air density changes. So as the temperature changes and the temp gets colder, we'll have more oxygen molecules packed into the same volume of air entering the engine, and therefore we need a little bit more fuel. This allows us to go in and compensate. And then likewise, as we start to get to the hot temperatures, we'll find that the air density actually drops. We have less oxygen molecules packed into the same volume of air, and therefore we need less fuel. Because we're tuning in VE mode, the ECU, the Holley, is going to be taking a look at the manifold air temperature registration and reading. And it uses that in terms of airflow estimation. If the air temp is high, it means the air density is going to be relatively high and we need less fuel. If it's air temperature is low, the air density is going to be increasing, and we need to, in that case, add some more fuel. So depending on where we're at in terms of the manifold air temp reading in the air temp sensor, it can influence our fuel calculations because we are in this VE mode. Technically speaking, because we are in VE mode, we should just set this whole table here to 100% and not allow it to add any modifier or offsets. But this allows the fuel model to operate a little bit more accurately. So I'm going to leave it just populated as is. But if you wanted to be technical with this and be very, very specific, you'd set the whole table to 100. You'd run it at different ranges of air temp compensation, and then or air temp ranges here, and you'd note what what compensations are doing as the seasonal changes were happening, and then you would change and reflect any updates you needed to right into the table here, rather than absorbing them and trying to correct your base fuel table. But for right now, I'm going to leave and populate it where it's at. Fuel control, this is the deceleration fuel cut and part of the acceleration enrichment tripping event. So the TPS ROC, the MAP ROC, that's the rate of change in movement. We're not going to do anything with accel enrichment, and we're not going to turn on the decel fuel cut. We're going to leave that off for right now just to simplify the process. We'll come back into this and talk about this separate video. Startup enrichment, that's the cranking fuel and the after start fuel. So the cranking fuel is how much added when the engine's cranking. And then we can find here after start, that's going to be how much it's added right after the engine's fired off for the first 5, 10, 20 seconds to stabilize combustion. Both of these are needed to get the engine to crank, fire, and run smoothly. We'll talk about this once we get the engine actually going in the next video. We'll look at this doing the hot cranking, making sure that starts well. And then we'll also take a look at it on a cold start and see if we need to tweak any of these values. We're going to leave all these values alone. Usually, the values that Holley provides are really good starting points. So we rarely have to modify any of these heavily. We're just going to run with what's in the base file here, and then we can tweak and adjust if needed as we get into the situation where we're actually testing it. Let's close out our fuel ICF. Let's move into our spark ICF. Here, we're going to find we have our main spark timing table. This commands where we want to fire off the spark plug on our compression stroke. If we have a value here of 0 degrees in the table, that means that we're trying to fire the spark plug top dead center between our compression and power strokes. If we're having a value that's really high, something like 40 degrees, we're commanding our spark timing to happen 40 degrees before top dead center on our compression stroke. The higher the value we place in here, the sooner we initiate our spark and our combustion. What we're trying to do is optimize our values in here so that we're timing the peak combustion pressure. So it pushes down on the piston 15 to 20 degrees after top dead center on our power or our, the power stroke in this case. And what it's going to do is push the piston down, give the greatest mechanical advantage to pushing the piston and rod assembly down onto the crankshaft, to spin the crankshaft, to produce the most horsepower and torque production out of the engine. If we time it right, we'll be getting to what's known as maximum brake torque. If we time it wrong, we'll be either above or below that. What we want to do is optimize it and try to get as close to maximum brake torque as we can. It's definitely possible in a naturally aspirated engine like this, so we'll talk about how to do that. But what we want to do here is create a good, solid base file to begin our process with. Now, what I'm going to do here is go to small table. I'm going to go here at idle between 450 to 1100. In this range, this is where it's going to be, for the timing, this is going to be where we actually idle at. What we need to do is keep in mind that we have a larger camshaft installed. Now on an LS engine with a stock camshaft, commanded timing at idle will be anywhere between 12 to 15 degrees. With a camshaft installed, we typically have to be between 18 to 20 degrees. We increase our spark timing at idle so that we can compensate for some of the lost torque with a larger camshaft. At idle, if we have a higher lift and duration on the camshaft, it will have more cylinder bleeding, and cylinder bleeding will have less cylinder pressure, and as a result, we'll lose idle torque and the engine will try to idle lower. As a result of all this, we need to compensate. We need to add some spark timing back in to get that lost torque back. Now, depending on how large that camshaft's going to be, you might find that you have to get pretty crazy with your timing values. I've seen timing values as high as 30 degrees on a really radically large camshaft. This is a medium-sized cam. I'm going to say anywhere between 18 to 20 degrees should be a reasonable starting point. The tighter the LSA, this is a 112 LSA, but the tighter the LSA, the more you find that it can affect the idle, the more you might need to bump in your timing. So 112 LSA, 18 to 20 degrees should be fine. This is a 238, 242 spec with a 600 lift. If you're dealing with more duration, more lift, and a tighter LSA, you might need to go off, starting off right off the bat, 24, 25 degrees. I'm going to put a value of 18 right here in the table. Now, thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.